I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're delighted to welcome Nicholas D'Alessandro. Born amidst the turbulence of 1965 Boston, he presents his transformative masterpiece called The Book of the Imagination. Charting paths unexplored, his work is a treasure trove of insights crafted to ignite the reader's imagination and offer 206 catalyst exercises to convert inspiration into life-enhancing manifestation. We are delighted to have this talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. We ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel. Nick, good to see you today.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. Loved your
Excellent.
book. I think it's important to help people, tap into their imagination once again. I always say by the time you're done with school, all the imagination is beaten out of you. So you got to get back and you got to find your way to find that inner child that has all that creativity, that has all that spark, that has all that wonder, that has all that imagination. What made you decide to write a book about one's imagination?
Okay, so the short story is I picked up a audio tape. We're dating ourselves now. When you went to the store and you to hear something, you had to buy a tape for a tape recorder.
Mm-hmm.
So the heading of it was how to learn to channel.
Mm-hmm.
And for audience that don't know what channeling is, you channel something other than what's your normal thought processes.
Gotcha.
Right. So there was meditations in there. And so I did the meditations, and then the person says, okay, now my channel personality is going to come through and talk. So part of it was listening to this, and then it goes, oh, yeah, and you should keep a notebook handy, by the way, in your meditations. And just in case something comes through, we'd love to channel through you. Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Well, anyways, it worked. Okay. And whether you believe in a higher power or other entities channeling through you, and you either write it down or transcribe it, whether you believe that or not, it can work. So it worked for me. I started writing down my notes, and I realized also that some of my older notes before even that was information that, I'm like, that didn't come from me. In any case, so that's a short story on how the book was formulated. So I decided with them, if you want to call it that, the name of the book of the imagination, or about the imagination. And they said, okay. They said chapter 1. They wrote down the chapter headings, and then proceeded to give me information, which I wrote down because I was alone. I didn't have anybody to transcribe the stuff for me. I didn't have anybody to operate a tape recorder for me. So I wrote it down in my notebook, chapter by chapter, and I got all this bulk information. So that is the genesis of writing the book. It may go back further than that, but that's where I'm going to start.
Okay, cool. So that basically inspiration is what brought you to putting all these thoughts down on paper.
That is
wonderful.
Correct.
206 catalyst exercises. I know the folks at home are curious to find out what some of these exercises are. So why don't you share one or two of the exercises with us, Nick?
Yeah, so I have my book right up here handy. Yep. so that's the book. And yep. how it came through, or it was like, okay, imagine this, and I wrote this down in my book, and I chose to format it in this way because there would be like maybe a paragraph or 2 or 3 line discussion, and then some kind of like imagine this, and that's how it was written. So I decided that to kind of separate the two. So just like in any school setting, a teacher would say, give you an example on the chalkboard and go, okay, now here's a lesson for you to do based on what was said. And and in this book, it's about the imagination. So it was like, okay, imagine you know, a concept. Let's just say you want to drive to Walmart. You don't know how to get to Walmart, right? So you imagine how to get to Walmart. Well, you don't have a car. Well, you got to get a car, right? So it breaks it down in that respect. So I'm just going to open up one page.
Sure.
And it says why we don't remember our dreams. You know, so there's a blurb about that. It says one of the reasons why I think dreams are not remembered is that during the day we think in a narrow-minded way, or more precisely, the ego is so focused on what we are currently doing that it is very little time to devote to other things outside the box. And then there's an exercise. So there's that thought form.
Yeah,
that's put out there. And then there's an exercise to challenge yourself to not just read it, not just even absorb it, but to actually physically do something using the imagination, exercise the imagination to maybe achieve what the lesson is trying to purvey. So exercise 6, exercise 0084, imagine giving the ego the leeway in the room to consider dreaming possibilities. And then it might go a little bit further than that. So I broke it down into exercises and the concepts that the book is trying to put forth so that you can not just read it, not just go put about that was a nice book. I love the book. I'm going to meditate on it a little bit. And then you just generally forget about the book.
Right.
It was a great book. But this book is concise. I purposely made it so that no matter where you open up the book, whether it's a paragraph, a sentence, a phrase, or even maybe just a couple of words, it's going to give you meaning. So you can't just open this book up okay. One of my pet peeves in any of these books, okay, quite frankly, is that maybe 300, 400 pages to fill a book, to sell $30 book or whatever.
Right.
And it takes you to the 299th page for them to get down to the point.
Exactly.
Of what they promised on the cover, on the back, on the cover, in the introduction. This is what you're going to learn in here. But basically, you're waiting for that one little sentence in there that gets down and gives you the information they're promising, and they generally, they don't. So I purposely wrote a book that I wasn't going to spend 500 pages for you to figure out what I'm talking about. So you can open it up to any page, read the blurb, but read the concept, get understanding of it, and then do the exercise. And that right there is probably the entire book of other books. That one concept and that one exercise, you could write a whole book on that. Right. But I'm like, no, I'm putting it all. And like you said, how many did you say I had? 200
exactly. I mean, that's what I
exercises?
liked about your book. It's concise. It's to the point. It's not a time waster. A lot of authors will spend 5 pages describing the color of paint in the room. We don't need to hear that. This is a workbook. This is something you can actually use right away. And it's reinforced by the exercises you have, which is great. So it's more than just reading. It's basically an activity book as well. Talk to me a little bit, Nick, about the difference between little mind and unlimited imagination.
Little mind?
Well, when you have smaller thoughts, when you're not really expanding your brain the way you should.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm guilty of it. You're guilty of it. Everybody's guilty of that. So don't beat yourself up about it. There's definitely a constricting in the mind sometimes when we feel maybe threatened or we're tired. Um, so the little mind, as you call it, is not expanded. Now, there is a use for it, and I'm going to use a camera analogy or microscope to a Hubble telescope analogy. So when you're a scientist, and what do you want to look at? You want to look at microbes, okay? So what you might be calling the little mind may not be as bad as you think. It's a way for us to focus intently on one thing very small. So you got to look through the microscope, and when you're looking through the microscope, what can you see? Only what's in the microscope, but you see what you want to see. You see the little tiny microbe. Now, that's bad if a bear comes behind you and you don't know it.
Right.
If there's some danger outside of you, so you're going to get mauled because you don't even know what's coming. So it appears bad in one respect, but it's super good in another respect. So everything has its kind of its place. So when we think of small mind, we think of narrow-mindedness, but when we're narrow-minded, we're focused on one little thing. Now, you need to focus out, okay, to get more of a full picture. But when you focus out and look at the full picture, all that minuteness goes away. But you can see the entire city of Boston from a helicopter, but you don't know what's happening in a building.
Right.
You're not focused in on any one really particular thing. You might see little dots of people running around, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so instead of thinking of this little mind, big mind, think of focus in, focus out. And you need both, okay? You need both abilities. Our problem is we constantly focus in all the time. So if you got a problem, you're focusing in because you want to solve that problem, but maybe you spend too much time focusing in, then focus out. When you focus out, wow, maybe that problem doesn't seem so big. Same thing when you say you're watching TV. We come up with these big TVs, 90-inch widescreen TVs, okay?
Right.
You think you need that. But when I was a kid, when you were a kid, what we're showing our ages, we have these little TVs.
Right.
But when you focused in on that TV, that was your whole, that might as well have been a 90-inch screen
Exactly.
TV.
It was your whole
You know
world.
what I'm saying? Because you're focusing in on it, because you're focused in, see? So personally, I think it's a waste of money to buy a huge TV.
Hey, Nick, we're
Considering where
almost out
we
of
came
time. I
from.
just wanted to ask you a little bit about your formative years. You and I grew up in
Go
the
ahead.
same era, born in the 60s, raised
Yeah.
in the 70s and the 80s.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the pivotal events that happened during those decades shaped your perspectives on imagination?
I think so. I grew up in Catholic schools,
Me too.
and yeah, I grew up 1 through 12. I grew up in Catholic schools. One of the main reasons why they put me through Catholic school and took the expense was we had something called busing in Boston.
Right.
Where they wanted to somehow integrate all the neighborhoods into schools that were integrated. So they took predominantly white neighborhoods and they bust them all over the city to predominantly, if you want to use the term black and white, I don't know if you can use those
It was
terms
kind of like
anymore.
forced
But
desegregation.
we had neighborhoods very so they bust everybody all over the city, and it was all over the news, and kids on the street were smashing buses. Didn't matter what ethnicity you were. If you were busted, no one seemed to want to integrate. So that was a big problem. So they sent me. Well, the school was only a mile and a half, so I could actually walk to it.
Yeah.
So it was Catholic school. So that uh, brought me to. There's quite a bit of, obviously it's a religion, or they give you religious studies, and those religious studies gave me the foundation for um, uh, exploring. I've since
Do you think that got you connected more to your spirituality? So you're
I
more
think
open to
so.
channeling and open more to inspiration?
I truly believe that. Okay, people might go, "Oh yeah, Catholic Church, and you hate religion," because a lot of people sort of break out of that mold,
Right.
or throw away the old. But I don't.
Same.
Jesus was my buddy.
Yeah.
The apostles were my friends.
Yeah.
I imagine them as my friends. I imagine them as my buddies. They weren't out there as, airy fairy kind of land. They were my buddies. They were my posse. The more I think about it, the more I feel blessed to have those experiences growing
Absolutely.
up. So it did help me to continue on in life. And as I branched out, focused out, I learned about other religions. I learned how similar they were, dissimilar they are, and that what's led me to
This point in
my
life.
own exploration. Yes.
Absolutely. Wonderful talking to you. The name of the book for the folks at home is The Book of the Imagination. It is written by Nick D'Alessandro. It is a treasure book of insights crafted to ignite your imagination. It offers more than 200 exercises that'll take your inspiration and turn it into life-changing manifestation. This is a wonderful book. It gets right to the point. Nick is not a time waster. You will love this book. Nick, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you.
And I'm Logan Crawford. To the folks at home, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.